Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Economic Preppers. I'm the host, Jeff, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Patrick and Dylan. Patrick, let's start with you. How you doing today, bud?
Man, I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day in Oregon. Sun is out, and we are busy.
Very busy. Dylan, how's it going in Colorado?
It's raining, but we need it. We need the rain. The more rain out here, the better. It reduces wildfires, which is great. So,
Yeah. My buddies back in Myrtle Beach said it was raining all weekend, so that's how it goes. But sometimes you just you have to expect the unexpected. Speaking of which, we have to touch on this story. We have a couple of stories we got to clear the decks on before we get to new stuff and more interesting stuff. By the way, I'm actually going to remember, this might be a record. If you like this content and you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell on whatever platform you're watching, on YouTube, on Rumble, on BitChute, on our clips. You'll be seeing more clips like Patrick and I are starting to do on this show. And Dylan's got the password now too, so he can upload some content. We're going to be adding more clips, more information, both on Instagram and on YouTube. So stay tuned for all that. But in the meantime, the big stories that we have to touch on leading off, and I don't know where Reuters' picture went on this article, but they're probably just as in the dark as I am on this debt ceiling. It got passed, guys. We don't need to talk about the details of it, but the question everybody's asking is, what's inside this deal? Do we even know? So let's just go back and Dylan, what do you know about the debt ceiling? What do you know about this deal that got struck last night?
I actually don't know a ton about the deal that got struck last night. I know we've been talking about it. I know people have been worried about it, and there's people weighing on each side saying that it shouldn't be raised, that it has to be raised, it's going to be raised, and then the implications. I heard one person talking about the implication of it being raised, that we might see a massive loss of liquidity in the markets. So there's a lot of implications to whatever actions are taken. So it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal, because it seems like we've been doing this same type of thing over and over and over again. But I guess all the conditions and all the things we've talked about in the economy over these past months and years are making it potentially a bigger deal and a more significant event than previous times.
Yeah, and I've got lots to say about it, but I'm going to let Patrick give it a crack first here.
Only thing I think about is the word 4 trillion. That's a big number.
2 words, but I'll give it to you. Everyone's bad at math these days.
Shut up. All I know is 4 trillion is a big number.
It is.
And that's going to really suck when it hits the Dixie. It'll mean asset prices will go up for certain. But it'll also mean that they're going to have to probably increase interest rates to adjust for that as well. And I see the only way forward is a 40-year mortgage for a lot of people who want homes. This is a cluster, guys. This is ridiculous. 4 trillion, no big deal.
Well, it's even worse than that, because if you dig into the deal, what they agreed on, 4 trillion is an estimate. Okay, 4 trillion is an estimate.
It took 12 billion in cuts.
There is no debt ceiling right now. They have eliminated the debt ceiling. They've suspended it, which has happened in the past. And if you look at the history of the chart, it just goes up astronomically. And there's no ceiling on spending until 2025 in January. So whoever is elected in next November gets to deal with inherit this problem. So once again, they kick the can down the road. But I'm wondering, because yes, they've raised the ceiling, they could spend more, but where does the money come from is the problem. Is that I did some more homework, because typically Janet Yellen would be given a checkbook now to say, okay, I need to go sell some bonds so I can get some money into the coffers so the Treasury can write some checks. What if there's no banks that are out there, or nobody that wants these bonds? Well, I did even more digging that there are designated banks in the U.S. that must buy bonds if no one else is around. So someone's going to have to buy these, but they have to fund those banks. So what if the banks are funded and it's 30 days from now? FedNow is just a month away. So what if, guys, this is how they introduce CBDCs. They give these banks CBDCs and say, here, you can buy these bonds that no one else wants. And we're giving you CBDCs to purchase them. And now you have CBDCs to start distributing. And that's how it gets put into the marketplace. Patrick, what do you think about that possibility?
Sounds like something from a Disney fairy tale. Like you're going to make fluffy money come out of clouds backed by rainbows. This makes no sense at all. I don't see that anyone is going to fly with this, but then again, that's exactly probably why it'll pass, because most people won't even get what they're paying.
Yeah,
I don't even know. It could happen. I've seen weirder things.
Yeah, like any Disney movie that's been reimagined and reinvented the characters and just pushed forward. But we'll get into Hollywood in a moment. But Dylan, what's your take on that possibility? You see that what if as a possible answer for CBDCs?
Man, I think they're going to do anything to push those forward little by little.
I mean, a child writing a fairy tale, bro. Like your kid is coming up with a story.
And then we take the gumdrops and we put them here.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
One of the founders of one of the, maybe the second largest crypto, infamously said, now with our project, we've created this virtual system that doesn't have to abide by the laws of physics, and so we can basically do whatever we want and we need, and we're not limited by physics. And so you're playing in an imaginary realm, an imaginary world, and it seems like we are falling into this imaginary world when it comes to when it comes to the money, when it comes to the debt, where this money comes from. It's like, well, whoever can get the most creative thing that looks the most legit and convinces the most important people, that will work, despite it not being tenable at all.
Yeah, guys, some things in our world, we look at it, right, and they try to convince you like what you're looking at is not what you're seeing. Like, hey guys, I want you to understand this is a CBDC and it's valuable. And I'm like looking at it going, what are you guys talking about? Like, how could you buy bonds with a CBDC that you just printed out of thin air? And then you go, oh yeah, that's what you guys do. Well, exactly. Of course you can.
We saw that. We literally saw that. I like to say that like the crypto ecosystem is like it's like the real fiat ecosystem on steroids, where things just happen so fast in that ecosystem. Because we literally saw that with FTX a few months ago, where they literally printed a token out of thin air and they use it as collateral to get other real assets and real money coming in. And we saw how that ended.
Well, guys, I mean, just remember what fiat currency is. Fiat means by decree. It's worth something because I say so. It's as simple as that. So whoever gets to make the say so statements, that means it's worth something. That's the craziness that we're at. Now we'll get into real assets like Bitcoin, gold, silver. That's coming up. But let's go over a little bit more of the craziness that's going on. Dylan, you shared a video today that's pretty. Why don't you set this up and just speak to what's in there? And I took some notes on it too. It's too long to really play, but there's definitely a lot of good content here.
Yeah. So I was inspired by this video. I saw this a few days ago, and then I went back to this because I had a bunch of emails hit my inbox and saw a bunch of social campaigns on Instagram and other places for a particular month that we're gonna talk about, and it has to do with the saying of "get woke, go broke." And here in this video, we have Patrick Bet-David talking about why all these companies are going woke, right? Who is behind it? Who is influencing that? And it really comes down to it's BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, I think, are the top three ones. And I think it's either them combined or just BlackRock alone has $11 trillion under management, like of control. And that's like, I think the US GDP is like 32 trillion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like
the debt is about 98% of the GDP right now. So, and they have ownership shares of like at least 15 to 20% in 80% of the top companies.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, whatever their agenda is, these big, large companies, in order to get funding, in order to get praise, in order to get whatever, and it gets a little more complicated. He goes into a little more details about ESG scores and that kind of stuff. But whatever their agenda is, has to basically be adopted by these companies if they want to be able to access capital. And these companies, I mean, for a big business, being able to access capital is a critical element of success of some of these businesses. And so that he uses that to explain why you're seeing just this massive influx of marketing and promotions around things that, if you're listening to the show, you probably are tired of seeing and tired of hearing. So definitely go check out the video. The first 8 minutes explain it the best in that particular clip, and that'll probably be linked below this.
Yeah, there's a lot in that video, and I think you hit on a lot of the top points there. But you need to play in these games for these big companies. These big companies, and some of them are taking stands, but the big boys, that in order to play in this field, they got to abide by the rules. So in order to get those funds, they got to go where certain things are going, and it's a tough spot for them. But there's a lot of other things that are going on. Like it is Pride Month. Welcome to June 1st. We're recording here on June 1st. as Dylan said, you're going to see a lot of things in your email box about Pride, and it's still coming up with Target. It's as much as we don't want to talk about it, we have to talk about it. Target, like this is actually kind of good news if you're opposed to this sort of thing. Target, again, is having problems. We've heard about North Face. We heard about Bud Light still having an issue. They're still playing these games.
Yeah.
And I think Chick-fil-A is now the next one because they heard that they have a DEI vice president or whatever that stands for, but it's some kind of progressive type.
I don't know. I saw that. So the whole Chick-fil-A thing, right? People are, did you guys see what it was? It's the diversity and inclusion VP is what it was.
That's right.
And he made a comment, something along the lines of like, we're really committed to making this like a place where everyone feels welcome and loved. And I don't think that's out of the narrative of like Christian culture. People just want to take it and spin it as he said the word like, we support all gays and lesbians and homosexuals and transgenders. That's not what he said. He said, we're committed to making this a place where you feel kind and cared for and loved. And I don't know, that one's kind of, I don't believe that one so much. It just seems to align with their values.
Yeah. And I want to point out that when we talk about this is like, business is business. I think the biggest problem, at least for me personally, that I have with this is like, I don't want to like have any sort of like political agenda being shoved down my throat or waved in front of me all the time. I just want to learn about the business.
Let me tell you what he said too, when you get a sec.
Yeah. And so I just want to hear about the business, like from like the North Face or from, Target or whatever. I just want to hear about what products they have to sell, not like a product and then having a political agenda slapped onto it. I don't care about that. I want people to feel safe and welcome in whatever workplace they're in, and then but I don't want to keep hearing about this kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, oh man, and for me, like, I don't relate to it. And so that's probably a reason why as well. It's like, it just doesn't appeal to me.
Listen to this. All he said was Chick-fil-A restaurants have long been recognized as a place where people know they will be treated well. Yeah. Modeling care for others starts in the restaurant, and we are committed to ensuring mutual respect, understanding, and dignity everywhere we do business. These tenets are good for business practice and crucial to fulfilling our corporate purpose.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in there that says anything other than like, we recognize this holiday for you guys, but we won't support it. Yet we respect everyone, like a normal Christian business would probably come out and say.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion on Twitter, and it was mostly around the fact that they had a DEI vice president. It was really the label, the title, and they didn't know. They didn't translate to like
diversity.
It wasn't a commercial or anything.
It wasn't designed just for this topic. Diversity, equity, inclusion started in healthcare, and I led one of the first projects. It was all about start out with like women and minority-owned businesses. That's where it started out as.
I get it, but it's a trigger label right now. And there's like, no, there's another DEI vice president. So that's the first, it's one of their indicators, but it's not like there was a commercial or an ad or a policy or an email that came out that was a concern. I mean, like Chick-fil-A has been considered like kind of like Hobby Lobby. They take Sundays off. There's like kind of a Christian value type company. Yeah. So that was the question, like, why would Chick-fil-A do this? So but we're going to see a lot of discussion about this across the board, both here and in Hollywood. So let's talk about Hollywood real quick and get to that. But let's defer on the Hollywood because we want to talk a little bit more about the economy. Then we'll go back to Hollywood because there's just so much to talk to. Let me zip through a couple of quick articles here on the economy just to give you more flavor. The layoffs, all right? Layoffs are up fourfold again this year. So the job numbers don't believe them, okay? And then we've got U.S. manufacturing surveys looking at the deterioration of business conditions. So everything is adding up to bad things for the consumer and their jobs. Here's again, the jobless claims are at another 18-month high, soaring layoffs. And then on Twitter, we had two good tweets that hopefully come up here. The Kobayashi letter, the total credit card debt for Americans has finally officially crossed $1 trillion for the first time in history. So if you just look at the numbers, they just break it down. The average American family has $10,000 in credit card debt, and 40% of Americans now have more than that in savings. So you could see, like, there's the chart here.
They should just print two $1 trillion coins.
Well, but Joe Brown, one of our previous guests here, was talking about it, and just he had a good tweet on how to manage this. But the bottom line is that people are getting attacked from all different angles here. Before I get into the AI part and the job and a little bit more about the jobs, guys, do you have any comments on the credit situation that we're enduring here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a symptom of everything going on. Like one, we're all plugged into these devices here. And thank you guys for being plugged in and watching our show. Hopefully, you're getting informed and consuming good stuff, or stuff that is beneficial to whatever your goals are. But the reality is the marketers, like, and the amount of data they have at their fingertips. They've gotten so good at convincing people to spend, to buy. They've reduced the friction of buying online to almost zero. There's so many types of services out there that you can buy now, pay later. It just makes it so easy. And then when you see all this stuff, right, you're scrolling through your feed every day, every night, like, and you just feel like you're in a location or a place where you feel unfulfilled. It makes it easy to be like, well, my life could just be that much better if I had this new fancy thing, right? And it's so easy to push that button thinking whatever materialistic thing that you're going to buy is going to, or whatever, like, event or concert, whatever you're spending your money on is going to solve your problems. But that's not the case. And so not only is that happening, not only is the marketing more sophisticated, we're more plugged in than ever. The barriers to buying are so much lower, but also the prices of all the things that you need to live have gone up, right? Yeah. And, you have got a lot of people that have a bunch of student debt, right, that they have to pay, right? And so you have that group of people, and then living expenses have gone up, the food expenses have gone up, transportation's gone up, right? Everything's increased. Salaries haven't necessarily increased accordingly for it. And so it makes more sense that then more of those essentials are going to go on the credit card as well. So it's just, I think it's just definitely a symptom of what is going on in this world. Yeah. And it's tough. It's really tough. I don't necessarily see it getting better anytime soon.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I saw, like, even on Twitter, people were getting hit from all different angles. I even saw conversations about people are unretired, not just because they want to, but because they need to. Like, they can't, like, people on fixed incomes. Those fixed incomes it's not going nearly as far as it used to be. So there's going to have to be something. It could be another UBI has not been talked about for a while. That could be brought back up. There's going to be a lot of conversations about finances in the next several weeks, which is really why we're our event. It's scrolling across the bottom here. Patrick, it might be a good time to talk about the event. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but I mean, the timing, talk about the timing, Patrick, the fact that we're going to have this meetup at the end of September, early October in Las Vegas try to summarize all the possible things that's going to happen between now and then. Could it be more timely?
I don't know, bro. I'm still kind of like sad about the reality of what you were saying, because I don't think it's such a statement that we could just fly right by. This is a pretty scary time, and I feel like no one's listening. Like, guys, why aren't people listening? Why aren't they understanding that it's time to get your prepping stuff in order? Make sure that you have shelves set up in your garage, and make sure that you've got the food you need, and get ready for whatever's coming, because I don't know what it is. My video yesterday was all about this idea of a calm before a storm, and it feels quite like that right now. In Oregon, the sun is shining. It doesn't seem like there's anyone protesting anything, and school's about to be done. The kids are smiling, like everyone's happy. This debt ceiling crisis is gone. Nothing is going to happen. Like, things just seem pretty tame, and I don't think that these next 3 months leading up to the symposium are going to yield the fruit that we expect it to yield. Yeah. At least not what most Americans believe it will yield. Some of us see the writing on the wall, and I really hope you take this as a warning and just as a caution. This isn't fear. It's just saying, like, be practical. Instead of worrying about how much crypto you're going to stack or how much silver you're going to buy or what new property you're going to buy, make sure that you take care of your essential resources first. And I really mean it. Get rid of some of your debt. Work really hard. Joe Brown made a great statement. Get rid of your debt, because what's coming, it's whatever it is, it's poison. Like, I'm not joking. You're not going to see through it the way you think you're going to see through it.
And I would just want to comment real quick. I think you're exactly right there, Patrick, is, you got to work through it. I think if you ever read the book A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and it's about basically him being in Nazi concentration camps where there's no hope, right? They try to deprive you of that, and you get to find meaning in a meaningless situation. And that allowed him to survive the camps, and of course write the book afterwards. And we kind of have almost a reverse situation going on here, where there's so much like luxury, or there's so much materialism around you. Everything's so easy, especially here in America, where it's so easy to fall into it doesn't really matter, like, because there's no like real consequences for a lot of people or in a lot of situations, because things have just been easy. So it's kind of hard to fall into, to find the meaning in that world where it's like, well, it doesn't really mean anything. It's not that big of a deal. Right. And so I've seen that happen. I see that happen with people. And I think the key thing is to find something, a purpose that is like greater than yourself, something that has real value, and attach yourself to that. And that of course aligns with your views and values. And so something like prepping is something that can give you that purpose, and preparing and like keeping yourself healthy and making real connections with real people. I think all these things can go to solve some of these problems.
Yeah.
Do you remember uneducated economist Simon?
Yeah.
Man, when that guy talks about the price of lumber, really puts things in perspective, right? Just a basic commodity that you look at. And these are the types of things where you realize why the Silver Symposium is going to be a necessary thing for you to like resonate with. You are bringing together people who think like-minded, people who agree that the fiat system is not healthy for us, people who see that it is enslaving our children to debt for years to come, people who see how the systems currently set up and how they are currently operating are there for one purpose. The whole point of it is they're trying to distract you from what's really going on. And it is an agenda desiring to control your mind and your spirit. They're trying to share untruth with you and trying to convince you it is truth. These are the things that are happening.
Yeah, it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts, and it's not going to be one dramatic event, but the time of year, and like, I try to think of things on the average Joe and Jane consumer, and it's not always easy to do, because I learned from being on the internet for many different jobs, the person on the other side of the screen, or whoever's that you're talking to, 99 times out of 100 is nothing like you. It could be an 8-year-old, could be an 80-year-old, could be a woman, could be someone in Maine, could be someone in Germany. They have a different life. They have different perspectives. But most people right now, there's a saying, in May you go away. And that's what happens. If people, like, it's the end of the school year, summer's out, the weather is nice, people focus on family, having vacations. They don't want to be bothered with a lot of different things over the summer. So a lot of the finances kind of like the economics and the markets, they kind of calm down for the summer, and then they start kicking in September, October again. Yeah, that's historically where it goes. Now that's where a lot of mentality of people is, but often like the powers that be, they use that to their advantage, kind of like releasing a story on a Friday night or on a Black Friday, or when people aren't looking, like on a Memorial Day weekend. They like think back to when we went off the gold standard. It was August 15th, 1971. Middle of the dog days of summer, no one's paying attention to anything, and just a throwaway speech that Nixon says we're going off the gold standard. Huge consequences for the next 50, 60 years. But at the time, not many people paid attention. So there's like, we're highlighting things that are going to add up and just be there for you and just impact your life for the next several years, that we're trying to draw attention to, so you're prepared and you're not scared of what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. These are things that add up. We talk about, Patrick and I are going to do a video on Basel III, on Basel I. Basel I, II, and III are like gold rules for the Western world for gold standards. And the Basel III started, I think, in 2010, and it's still getting rolled out. It doesn't happen overnight. Some things take a long time to implement. These things that we're talking about, new world currencies, new trade agreements, debt ceilings, tomorrow's not going to be much different than today. But through 2-3 years from now, it's going to be way different. And that's where it's going to be rough times for the next year and a half, and until hopefully we get to a new administration, new government, hopefully that starts fixing these things, or things that are breaking and we build again. But the timing is the hardest thing to predict. All we can do is highlight things that are happening in the world that will eventually impact you, some short term, some longer term. But things aren't on the shelves to go buy, to the prices of certain things that you can't get, to shortages, to just general prices going up. I mean, these all impact you. Take credit availability, banks not lending. We talk about all that stuff. That's why we have the show, so we can talk about what we can do. Like, how are we going to get through this summer? How are we going to get through the next 12 months? How are we going to get through the next 24 months? And people right now are having trouble getting through the week, just making ends meet with layoffs, jobs, prices going up. And that's why we have to balance all those things that we talk about. So with that said, I'm going to talk about a little bit back to the jobs again, to a topic that Dylan likes to talk about, which is AI, which is getting more and more prevalent. Let me speak to that here. So next story. So AI. So artificial, again, zero hedge. Artificial intelligence is talking about a risk of extinction. They went to even further than the ChatGPT founder went through this article. But also, what's been coming up lately is ChatGPT is really bothering the people in Hollywood, particularly the writers' strike. So I know that the writers they're obviously tilted towards the left, but they are getting unemployed because not only are the writers on strike, but ChatGPT can fill in the balance. So the question is this going to be where the new wave of people getting laid off thanks to AI? Dylan, I'm going to throw this to you.
Man, yeah, no, it definitely is. I think the first comment on ensuring it doesn't lead to human extinction. I mean, that's definitely like an AI doomer point, which you can't. When I say AI doomer, I don't mean to like make the point seem insignificant. It's a very significant point, and something that you really should consider when you're playing with something that can become more intelligent and more scalable than a human. Like, you don't know what that's going to. I mean, it's called the singularity for a reason. Like, there becomes a point where you cannot predict what the future will be like, what the gains in intelligence and capabilities of it will be, and so you really have to approach that very cautiously, and consider all these things. So I think that is a valid point, and it's something that I made a video about like the AI apocalypse and can we stop it? And I personally think I don't think we can. Because I think the Pandora's box is open. And I think the best we can do is try to create a market to where the best ideas and so AI solutions arise, and they can compete and offset each other. Because if you create a super evil AI, and it's not even going to be evil, it's just like one that has potential to destroy you or has a prerogative to like build paperclips. It's the classic paperclip problem with AIs. You need to have one that can counter that one, right? And I think it's going to be really hard to do that from any sort of centralized situation, which would inevitably happen if people aren't allowed to develop AI things. So we need to kind of walk this very fine line between developing it, not too fast, but not too slowly, and then ensuring we have solutions to counter different types of AI threats or AI progress that's made. And so I think that's going to be very important. And as for the writers, they're going to be outcompeted. You're going to take one person, and I call them AI pilots, right? One person who has AI tools at their fingertips, and they can do the work of a whole team of writers, right? And so you don't need a whole team, because there's inevitably going to be a writer that you have on your payroll that is always late on their assignments, right? Their articles are kind of right? And that person's going to be the first to go, because that one top performing writer can just plug in the same topic to an AI, something like ChatGPT on steroids, and pump out 10 articles that are better than that, that lazy writer stuff. So that's where it's going to start. And it's not just going to be writers. It's going to happen everywhere. Like, this is a tool that is going to revolutionize so many industries as it progresses, and the speed at which it's going to progress is going to be massive. And I think what we're seeing right now, I know I'm going on for a minute, but I think what we're seeing right now is, a few months ago, it was just kind of like the really early adopters, because some of these tools have been out for like the past year and a half or so. They've been around in various forms, and it kind of rose to prominence at the beginning of the year, and people were like, wow, that's really wild. And now the average person, or even the more tech forward person, or people in these positions, have now heard about it a few times. And so they're likely taken action or played around with it. And so they're really starting to wake up and see, like, oh crap, like, the writing is on the wall for whatever I'm doing, because this does it better than I can do it, faster than I can do it. And entrepreneurs are going to move into that space ravenously and implement these tools to solve a bunch of problems. And that's going to push out anyone that can't keep up. So I think it's going to happen, and it's just a matter of time. I think it's inevitable, and it's something that we should be aware of and pay attention to really closely over the next few months and years.
Patrick, where do you see this evolving, especially considering you have kids in the school system? How are teachers dealing with that and doing homework with ChatGPT?
Dude, okay, so I'm going to tell you guys my perspective, right? First of all, I have so many comments, but all of them lead back to one story. My son, Mason, I'm going to teach you guys as parents a trick. When your kids are just like loving you so much and they don't want to let you breathe, you open up the ChatGPT app and you let him ask anything he wants on the ChatGPT app. It's not a big deal, right? Now, I'm telling you, the stuff that he comes up with, yes, these writers, they should be concerned. I took one of them and sent them to a buddy, and I'm telling you, this is like deep theology written by a pro. And my son somehow figured out how to ask it the right set of questions where even I was perplexed by the response, and it was very thought-provoking to an adult. So I took that and I sent it forward, and I was like, and he goes, who wrote this? What is this from? I said, my son. He goes, what do you mean your son? I said, my son wrote it. He goes, no way, bro. I said, yes, he did it. He really did it, right? And now your kids are like better than the 10 real technical writers. Like, not a professional writer better than the 10. A child who can't even spell the word technical and can ask this dang phone a question and it will literally write it out, like sermon notes, anything that is factual, like what does the Bible say about X, Y, and Z? It scans it and it tells you, bam, here's what it is. All of a sudden you are an expert in everything.
Yeah.
You always know. The damn kid always has the right answer. You know how hard it is to talk to a kid that always has the right answer back at you? It is not fun. Woo, holy moly, parents. We got a double-edged sword. Like, I don't know what to do here, but I'm not thinking about it taking over my job. I'm worried about, like, what are my kids going to learn to do that I don't even know? Like, sneaking out of their room, having an AI bot answer the phone, and they're not even there. They're partying or something. I don't know where they're at. They might be in a different country. How would we even know?
The possibilities that are opened up. Anything from, like, I've heard some of the writers claim about plagiarism. And is it? I've heard comments about.
Least of my concerns is how they're using it at school. That's the least of my concerns. I don't even care.
You just want to find your son.
You're not trying, kids. Use all the tools and resources available to do the best job you can. I'm okay with using it at school. If the teachers don't catch him, that's your fault, teacher. You suck. If my kid can beat you, good job, son. If you lose, you get a C. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm torn on the whole issue. I could see, like, Star Trek and the computer giving you an answer. That makes perfect sense. It frees you up to just be able to, but I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out. And I could see, like, it's one more thing for people to be worried about, like losing their job. And I know writers are worried about that now. And there's a strike going on in Hollywood. Obviously, we don't necessarily want to hear a lot of what they have to say right now because of their angles that they're leaning towards. But yet another thing on the pile I'll be concerned about. And getting back to economics one more time, there's one other topic. We haven't touched on this in a little while, but I saw this tweet the other day. I wanted to bring this up, and this is about real estate. Okay. And then this tweet happened to be about, that's the other one.
Was that the Redfin one?
Yeah, that's the Redfin one.
Yeah.
So the Redfin, Wall Street investors, like basically Redfin saying colossal, almost 50% crash in Q1. So this is and I added to this. It's already bigger than 2008. It's bigger than the Big Short 2.0. You're looking. Wait till commercial real estate gets involved in here and derivatives. And I went and I watched George Gammon, which I haven't watched him in a little while, but I just froze this one. Hopefully the picture will come up here. I'm having a little internet issues today, but George Gammon talked about. Well, I'll let that come up in a minute, and I'll share it when it finally does. But what George Gammon talked about was that banks have two paths for lending. And it just popped up. So let me share this. There we go. So George has two circles here, and the banks is at the top here. That's the green house right there. So the banks can I'm going to try and speak to it. So you have two options that banks can do. They can either lend to a company, which is in the left circle here, which is business, and then they go and build widgets, and then they make profits. But there's risk inherent to that. When a bank lends to a business, there's risk. Mm-hmm. When they lend to a big company like Target, Walmart, there's the Fed that always has their back in case one of these companies or the bank or somebody goes belly up. They're too big to fail. So now the Fed will come in and bail them out. So banks are looking at these two possible equations saying, do I want to support local business, to let mom and pa Smith buy a house or start a small business? Or do I put money in Walmart where I get maybe 5% return instead of 8%, but I have zero risk because the Fed is backing it? So now that's another way that they're destroying small businesses, because banks are they're going to maximize their profits for the minimal risk. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to lend to these big lenders. And that's why all the car loans and all the real estate loans are just exorbitant rates, if you can even get these products right now. Same with credit cards too. So lending is getting almost predatory, because banks, if you follow the money, the banks want to make the most profit for the least amount of risk. So that's what's going on. And I don't see that ending now. That's it. It's just another thing for consumers. The debt cycle is over. The money is now not available to start a business, but buy a car, buy a house, or so on. And it's making ends meet is even harder when you don't have access to these funds.
Yeah. Well, and the other big thing, I mean, since we're briefly talking about banks that we haven't mentioned, is maybe it's coming up, is bank failures. We haven't heard about one.
It's coming
right
eventually. It'll come back for sure.
But I heard someone talking about it. It's basically like, look, if you can go park your money in T-bills, and get 5% versus 0.5% or less at the bank, like money's going to flow to where you can. I mean, that's a 10x for your interest return. Like money's going to move to that space, and that's going to create more and more problems. So there might be a lull going on right now as people shuffle funds around, but I expect that will create more instability with these smaller banks. The larger banks are probably going to be fine, but with smaller banks here in the future, we might see some more collapses and stuff going on there.
Yep.
Because of that dynamic about, just the interest rates and parking your funds. Then people are going to start asking, we talk about this being a route to CBDCs. Well, like, if my money's not safe at a bank, well, I'm not going to leave it at the bank, but if I can put it somewhere where it's safe, I'm going to put it where it's safe. And why can't we create a situation where I can use that safe place like a bank, right? i.e. use the Fed like a bank? Well, hey, we have a solution, CBDC.
Yeah, George was speaking on the video about, like, if you have $100 million, if you have like a big quantity of money, big player, you're not going to be putting it in the bank, because the banks represent risk too, because they could go under. So you're going to find other ways to put it. That's when you buy those T-bills, because again, the government's backstopping everything right now, for now, with the power of the US dollar and the petrodollar. But that allows me to turn the page over to world economics and speak to that. And there's a story that came again from Zero Hedge. Here's just 3 highlighted stories about how the petrodollar is basically done. Moscow signed a deal with Iran for oil in May. So did China, again with Iran. And then China's like working with the Middle East. So all these deals that are out there, that's just tearing down the old world order of the petrodollar. And now we have China, Russia, and Iran and Iraq making their own agreements, just killing the dollar. There's lots of things going on. Then he also highlights, like, this is kind of the things that we're talking about that's happening this summer that you need to pay attention to. There's at least 3 major international meetings. The first one, not a catchy name. It's the SPIEF. And come on now. There we go. It's the SPIEF, for St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. I think it would have been better if we still went with the original name of St. Petersburg, which was, why am I drawing a blank? St. Petersburg used to be, I can't remember. I think it started with an L, but I can't remember the original name of St. Petersburg. But then it would be the Leaf Forum. But this is in the middle of June, and that's where Putin last year announced that the ruble was tied to gold, and then we've got a NATO meeting in July, which
Petrograd,
Leningrad,
and Petrograd, 1914 to 1924, Petrograd. And 1924 to 91 was Leningrad.
There you go, Leningrad. So it would have been the Leaf Conference. Much easier to say. I like how that flows. Better than SPIEF. But here's the next. So you got June. You've got SPIEF for Leaf in Russia. Then you've got the NATO meeting in Vilnius, Lithuania. And I wanted to bring that up because I had a map of NATO here. I don't know if this is going to be the right good, but you could kind of see it. So the original countries of NATO are in the blue, and over here is Russia, right past the green. So these other colors of countries have been the ones that have been added over time as you've been creeping closer and closer to Russia's border. So NATO is meeting in Lithuania, which is one of these little Baltic countries that are real close to Russia. So they're meeting there. That's in July. And then you've got the bigger one in August in Durban in South Africa. Now, we're going to talk about Africa in a moment, but there's lots of, I'll throw that on the table too, and then we can talk about all this because we've talked so much already. 2 more stories out of Africa. Zimbabwe. We know that they've had huge huge financial issues, but I wanted to highlight this. I'm not going to read everything, but they are tying, let's see, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe.
The digital tokens, remember?
Yes, they're making, I used to have this highlighted, so
like $10 to $5,000 of this and a gold backing physical.
They are experimenting with a gold-backed digital currency. They've had so many different currencies. We've seen the $1 trillion bill, which was a joke for a while, but now here we are with an African country that's doing a gold-backed digital currency to try to create some stability for finances. And the other instability that I've seen, again, speaking about Durban in South Africa, South Africa has got a lot of problems. They've got second railway ground to a halt. They have power outages, but I wanted to show this map here and reminded me of a few different cities in South Africa that I forgot about. There's Durban on the coast. That's where the meeting is in August for the BRICS nations. That area is liable to be, I mean, there's got issues. It's coastal. You've got rail issues. You've got power issues. But there's lots of major events that are happening between now and middle of August, which leads up to our event that we're talking about. But I wanted to mention South Africa, and I wanted to mention Zimbabwe because of one last chart that I wanted to share, and then we can start talking about all these international things and precious metals too. So this is the chart, and we mentioned this briefly before in one of the previous shows. And why do you have to? I don't know why that's there. Go away. I don't want to subscribe. There's my chart. So this is a chart, and it's going to cover it again. 75% of the world's platinum is made in South Africa or found mined in South Africa. About 10% in Russia and about 8% in Zimbabwe. I don't know why they weren't covering this up earlier. I guess they knew that I was going to look at this again. But 90% of the world's platinum supply comes from Russia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, and predominantly South Africa. So that's kind of where we've been looking at platinum in addition to silver and gold. But now is probably a good time to talk about all these international stuff, and then we'll talk about the Silver Symposium. So let me start with Dylan, and then I'll come back to Patrick, and we can lead into the symposium. So Dylan, I covered a lot of different things about the international and the meetings and such. Pick whatever you like and talk about it.
I mean, you mentioned Durban, and we know that that's going to be basically the BRICS conference coming up. At the end of the summer? That is happening.
That's mid-August.
Yeah. So that's a place. And so if it's true that those like Russia, South Africa, Zimbabwe are top platinum producers, and I think it also seems to be evident that when it comes to, like you mentioned before, that the government backs the dollar, and people like to say, well, it's backed by the U.S. military. The problem with the backing by the U.S. military right now is that we're basically at a nuclear standstill. Like you can't use nukes, and so you have to, if you're going to like enforce your military might, like you have to use more traditional style fighting, right? Or you have to go like 5th gen warfare and cyber warfare, that type of stuff. And cyber warfare, I don't know if the U.S. is the leader on that. Maybe we are, but the gap could be closed very, very, very easily. And so it seems like these countries are realizing they have leverage, and by leveraging the natural resources that they have, and by coming together, they can perhaps get a better position in the global economy versus before. Like they couldn't. But it seems like that's something that's going on, and we're seeing, like I've talked about this before, we're just seeing countries kind of like tighten their grip on assets, on real assets and resources that they have control over, because they don't want to get shaken out of their positions if there's any sort of big changes, but also if they can potentially use those to leverage themselves to be in a better position on the global economy or the global scale, to get more power, to get more resources, they're probably going to do it. And I think when you mention all these things, it seems like that's a strong possibility that these countries are doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different topics there. Patrick, what are your thoughts?
I don't know, guys. It's like our whole conversation going from like the debt ceiling to Pride Month and like everything that's going on with AI, just Hollywood. The idea that they're the ones who are throwing a fit about AI is kind of funny to me. at all. Real estate's in shambles, and we're just starting. The BRICS nations and everybody else is trying to create some kind of new standard. It doesn't matter what it is. They're all running away from fiat. That's the real truth of what's happening. If you want to read between the lines, is they're all trying to find something new. The discussions of the BRICS nations currency. Heck, remember we said my kids made up this thing called Unicoin? Oh wait, no, it wasn't made up by my children. That's real. Unicoin is a real thing, right? So at that, we're ending up with, hey, what's going on with Durbin? What's going on with platinum? And I'm going, I know what's going on. This literally sounds like exactly what we've been waiting for such a long time. There's a reason that there are properties hitting the markets that are already prepper friendly, right? It means like people have thought about this for a long time. You guys remember the word Y2K? Jeff, you remember that?
Yeah.
Y2K. Okay, so Y2K happened and then it was done, right? Everyone was like ready. Now they've got all of the stuff built ready for like the end of the world. But what I'm seeing now is truly scary and gross and disturbing, and I'm concerned for my children, and I don't want them in public school, and I don't want them in public anything. And it just makes me really sad because I want my kids to be able to take a bike and go ride to the neighbor's house and have fun down the street and have some other dad who loves soccer teach my kid how to play soccer, and they can come over to my house and I'll teach them how to like suck at basketball, but I'll teach them the rules. But like, what happened to this idea of community is it's breaking us down. People are isolating, and that's the scary part of what's happening. And it's just to cause division. It's all about causing division, putting out like exactly what one person's belief system is and making it appear like that's supposed to be forced somehow on everybody else. I don't believe many of us think that way. Dylan and you and I think differently. So many of us think differently. Even the people at the Silver Symposium, and this is a great place to switch it to, is even the people at the Silver Symposium that are going to be there, they look at me and they laugh. He has no idea what he's talking about. You Bitcoin dummy. Oh yeah, we're all so stupid at VRIC now, right? Why is everyone pointing at me and talking to me? Why do I have a bigger crowd than a lot of these people? Well, the reason is you can't escape what's truly happening in front of you. And that's some of the stuff that we come together at the Silver Symposium. It's the idea of bringing us back together about common values that we share. That's what we're going to be doing here. We're bringing together people, not just, you guys know Ninja, of course, but we've got Ninja. We've got the whole Ninja Nation influencer panel going to be there. But we've got a lot of other great people too, like David Morgan and Greg Manarino and a few more that I haven't shared with you guys. But, Bix Weir will be there. Lisa will be around. And these are all the things that we're going to do is we're going to bring together communities that think alike, that believe the same thing is happening. It doesn't matter what the new system is. It's just the reality that the dollar is failing and they're doing the best they can to suppress the news of what's really happening, which is that the gold and silver is being purchased by banks. It is being purchased by reserve nations. It is being purchased everywhere. So the reality is we should be learning about how this fits into our portfolio and what we as crypto people, as Bitcoin maximalists have in common with these silver bugs. Because I'm telling you, once you guys catch the silver bug, it doesn't go away.
Yeah. And it's a lot to digest. And let's talk about the symposium for a moment, because clearly there's a lot going to happen over the summer. And we're going to get to the end of the summer. And we've heard from our community. A lot of you have reached out to us. Thank you for that. Through various mechanisms, when they're asking, when's the next Economic Preppers event? When's the next time we're going to see you guys all together? The Silver Symposium, the Economic Preppers are a sponsor. We're going to be working with Patrick and the people at Stock Pulse there to set this up. Friday is going to be a major day towards crypto, but there's going to be crypto, silver,
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. So we're focused on people that may not. They're dipping their toes in different areas. So we are taking silver and gold people, dipping their toes into Bitcoin.
I just want to have a position I can 100% defend.
Right. So Bitcoin, silver, gold. There'll probably be discussions on real estate, maybe even some prepping too. But we all agree on on one truth, which is the dollar is garbage, and the world is realizing it now. And what we're seeing, and before we get into the crypto area, or our final topic for today, but I mean, that's as good a time as any, because I know it's kind of a downer of a show. I mean, if you stuck with us, thank you for watching the show. We really appreciate that. We know it's a lot of time, and we try to make it an hour, but we try to condense it to an hour. Really, there's so much to talk about, but community is a major thing. You've got to get community. They've torn down community for the last couple of years. The isolationist things that they've done to try and isolate people. It kind of goes back to the 3%. If you know your history, only 3% of the U.S. was involved in the Revolutionary War. That's where that phrase comes from. And people got together at bars or taverns, and they talked about what was going on at that time, and they decided as a group to do something about it. And what they wanted to prevent, the powers that be now, they wanted to prevent gatherings like that. That was one of the offshoots of the last few years, and make people more isolationist and make them go online to get into their social bubbles with social media, and make echo chambers. Like, if people believe X, Y, and Z, they'll gravitate to people that with common beliefs, and they all have the same kind of dialogue, which has ruined debate, which has ruined critical thinking, or the sharing of ideas. That's what community is for. It's like, Patrick and I may not agree, or Dylan and I may not agree, or whomever, we may not agree on a topic, but we're confident enough to speak to it and open up our minds like, oh, that's a reasonable point. I mean, consider that.
And I love you guys enough to listen to what you care about. Like, I'm just not an asshole. I care about what you guys think. So I don't care, Jeff, you think that there's some donut theory of the globe. I think you're weird. And I still love to listen to you talk, because sometimes you mention things and I'm like, wait a sec. Okay, back up. What did you just say? And you're like, yeah, the pyramids were not built by your ancestors. I was like, that you're wrong. Like, that happens. But if you're closed-minded, I'm not saying that you have to abandon your beliefs. I am saying find reasons to challenge your beliefs and solidify your beliefs. That is an okay thing, to test out your beliefs against things that can withstand it and take it and enjoy it and learn.
I've been a teacher in many different avenues in my life, either from an instructor or coaching kids or talking about particular topics. And I learned two things. One, as a teacher, you're really going to know your subject backwards and forwards, because people learn different ways, and you have to explain it many different ways. But some people will challenge you, and they will ask a question. And you say, that's a good point. Let me do research. It will make you more educated as a result of that, or it will make you stronger in your position. So either way, you will get better for it. And that's what debate is about, what education is about. But you have to be willing to challenge. Like, if someone asks you, like, the flat earthers come at me and say, why is the earth flat? I'm like, well, okay, we can have a conversation, but you need to have, like, what are the ground rules of logic and such, because some people just don't understand logical debate.
I always enjoy those conversations with you and them. I smile so much at those ones.
The fact that they don't understand what facts and truth are, and what arguments are, like, supporting facts, are a challenge for some of those people. So I'll just leave it there. But
I think Dylan said it best once. He said people just aren't critical thinkers anymore.
They aren't, and they're not. And not only that, but if you provide them with quite often, what you'll see, and if you're observant in the conversations and you're used to this, you can see what they're doing. Like, I've been in many conversations in my life where, like, they'll say the sky is blue. It's like, no, it's blue over there. It's like, but look at the sky in this picture. They will distract you from answering your topic or your rebuttal. They won't directly say, oh, like 2 + 2 is 4. Like, yes, it is 4. Like, well, but 2 + 3 is 5. They will change the topic, or they'll go in a different direction rather than addressing the point you just made, which is incredibly frustrating as someone like you saying, well, here's a fact, and they just don't want to address the fact of the room. They will just go like, that doesn't meet my narrative. They'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like when we talk about silver versus Bitcoin, I love having that discussion, because I say, hey, how about this? What about if I pull up a silver chart for you in Bitcoin, and then you tell me what's happening in that chart? Is silver beating Bitcoin? Is silver not beating Bitcoin? I'm not measuring it with the dollar. I'm measuring them against each other. You tell me.
Funny,
there you go. Great chart, Jeff.
Yeah. So silver, obviously been manipulated, has not done well in terms of sats, and there's been a lot of talk about that. The money has gone back and forth between the crypto market and the precious metals market. So now's as good a time as any to wrap up the show and talk about some of the crypto stories that we've had. One of the things I know,
the way you phrase it, right? Because you say silver is not doing well right now, where I would say, man, Bitcoin's doing pretty awesome lately, hasn't it? It's holding up well against the economic pressures.
But if you like both assets, then you can just play the arbitrage between the two. Now's a good time to sell Bitcoin for silver, for example, and then a couple of years from now, maybe you go vice versa. That's an example, Patrick. Example.
I didn't say a word. I just my neck was twitching.
But
Patrick
even the
likes
gold
Bitcoin.
bugs, the gold bugs will go between gold and silver.
I said, so Patrick likes Bitcoin.
Hey, listen, I'm a silver bug too, but there's no way for me to be an authentic human without saying you have to own some silver. It really is part of a really reasonable and wise strategy.
Yeah,
With that said, I would take Economic Ninja on a bet, and I'd say, man, let's give us 2 years by 2025. How about I'll put up a Bitcoin and you put up like the same amount of silver, and then we'll see who wins.
Well, there could be an interesting debate and contest at the Silver Symposium, and the tickets are like, if you get the tickets through the link,
there will be. I promise you that. This show. I have complete control over the agenda. I am putting together the show that people want to see. We're gonna be talking silver. We're gonna be talking supply. We're gonna be talking about myths and truths that come with silver from Bix Weir. You guys know our friend Bix. He'll be there too. So we're gonna have a lot of real conversations, but we're also going to address the real issues addressing us today, which is Bitcoin, central bank digital currencies, and how that plays in. What about gold-backed cryptos, silver-backed cryptos? Wait a sec. Why are we choosing gold and silver-backed cryptos as supposedly the best thing? Have you ever thought about why we think that somehow there's more value to a silver-backed or gold-backed token? It's because it's valuable. So let's go learn
the dollar's
about
not stable.
Yeah. So anyways, it's a pretty fun discussion, and I'm really looking forward to being part of this. And if you guys have any ideas or thoughts or things you think we'd like to get done, let me know. I still got room to be flexible in the agenda as I'm creating it. And if you have a favorite YouTuber or influencer, invite them. Hook them up with me. We'll get them there for you guys.
The main thing to do to act now is click on the link, get your ticket now. It's less than $90 with Patrick's link. The rooms will be cheap as well. I think we're going to have a room package available too, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick.
Yeah, that's just going to be really limited, so I don't want to promise anything right now. I think we only have like 300 or 400 rooms available, maybe 500 rooms available. So
you have to act quickly.
More than that signed up. Like I said, we're looking at getting more space. The one big space isn't going to be big enough for us anymore.
It's going to be a lot of people, a lot of content. But if you want to get to an event this year, the biggest silver event that's talking about the biggest anti-dollar event on the country, possibly the world, is going to be September 30th in Las Vegas that weekend. So join us there. Under $100 for a ticket. It's like $89, I think, with a discount. It's really, and it's easy to get to, and you get an ounce of silver too. So there's so much stuff that's available to you there, and you're going to meet all of us there. We're all going to be there. It's and a ton of other people that you watch on YouTube and other platforms. So definitely join us out there. But let's wrap up the show with a little bit of crypto talk. Patrick, you made a video on this channel, on our YouTube channel, about a particular event that's happening this week. Another choke point 2.0, and I'll share that. This is the video here. This is him talk about a little short video about BitPay. Patrick, do you want to break it down as far as what's happened with BitPay this month?
Yeah. So today, as we record it, so when you guys see it, it'll be yesterday. So right now at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday the 1st, they are no longer going to allow you to transfer your Bitcoin or Litecoin into the cash side of your app. So when you send the Bitcoin into your app, of course, everything is safe. It's under your keys, your control. You can use that and restore it in another wallet. You'll still have access to it in Ballet Wallet under the app, but they will no longer allow you after today at 6 p.m. So actually, it already happened.
Yeah.
So as of right now, you can no longer add any crypto and load it in from your wallet into your cash side. And then as of the 15th, I'm guessing it'll probably be at the same time at 6 p.m. Eastern, is they will stop allowing you to use your debit card. So your MasterCard from BitPay will no longer work as of June 15th.
So this is just more evidence of choke point 2.0. And I made a video on the Litecoin Leader channel as well about this. it's not the
I'm
end of the
holding Merrick to it though. 6 months and counting. He said by the end of the year,
that's what he said.
Solution.
So this is really like and I went over it in the video, and I'll put my video in the link too. But it's really just a matter of like these companies with these cards need bank partners in order to do that debit credit swap and the point of sale. So if their bank partner does not work, the MasterCard or the Visa part does the point of sale, but swapping or selling Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum for fiat currency needs a bank partner. If they are choked out, then they have to close down the account and they need to find another bank partner. Now, it's not the end of the world because BitPay has said like you can spend it for 2 more weeks. And if you can't do that, or if you have any other issues, call BitPay. Talk to them. They expect the calls this week and next week too. They will also like update your address. They will mail you a check if they have to close it down and just disperse it. We've met them and talked to them several times. They're a great company. This is not them. This is not them. This is not their choice. This is where their partner is going away. But this is more evidence of what we talked about with Choke Point 2.0. They're trying to cut us all off from going from fiat to crypto and back. And that's why we're talking about making a course, which will probably be announced next week, about becoming your own bank and how to manage those things, to manage assets, like getting out of the dollar system, but still paying your bills, and how to live that kind of life of being your own bank. So look for more on that next week. But we have one more crypto story that we should really touch on before we go, which is Hong Kong. So I think you know about this, Dylan. You know, you're up on this story about Hong Kong opening this week.
Fairly.
Right. Well,
I read the headline, saw it. I heard about it. I'm always skeptical about these ones.
Yeah. So sharing it real quick. Here's another article about Hong Kong is accepting licenses. Basically, they're starting crypto exchanges in Hong Kong, which
it's
opens
OSL and Hash blockchain. Those are the two. They licensed 2 new people to do these transactions.
Right. And they also launched another stable coin too, which they originally didn't talk that they were doing it, but I think it was like FDUSD, I think, for first something. But basically they Hong Kong opened up the gates, the floodgates, allegedly for all the Chinese nationals to now get to the Western world and get crypto for their fiat. That's basically the story. Yeah. And the mechanisms are still being worked out. It's on Twitter, and if you follow myself on Twitter or Patrick, we went over like there's 10 cryptos that are there, and I went back just personally just to see to the Occanopoly game that I played 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'd like you to know that Jeff missed one.
I missed one. 9 of the 10 coins that are on the list approved for China, I got 9 out of 10 2 years ago as being top coins that would persist. I get a pass, though, in the 10th one because it didn't exist back then. It was Solana. So I think I did pretty good. But we're talking about major projects, top 100 coins that are all like basically platform-based. They're really strong. You have Chainlink, you have Matic, Cardano, Bitcoin Cash, Polkadot. They're all there. Like the big players are mostly there. And that's not it's not a bad place to start for that list of coins. And they're like 4 or 5 exchanges that they were talking about, and some have a few other stragglers like Ethereum Classic or Stellar Lumens. But the top projects that are out there and in your top 50 or so, they're all represented. So what this really represents is 1 billion more people are now legally allowed to get into the crypto space, which could open up China, which should increase more demand for Bitcoin. We'll see.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's already baked in.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that they're one of the top. They used to be the top mining company or country, but now they're behind the U.S. But Bitmain's still a big player. But that's a major influence of crypto. But guys, we're at an hour, and we've covered a lot of different things. I'm sure we could talk for another hour or two if we wanted to. But I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to pause there for the week. Wrap it up, allow us to go work on our classes and our coursework and our other videos that we're going to pop throughout the week. But Dylan, what are your final thoughts for this episode today?
I think one thing on the choke point, and something to consider is we talked about countries really like trying to solidify their positions with assets, real assets they have under their control. And if you think about crypto and that kind of area, and not being able to get fiat into crypto and crypto back to fiat, because on-ramps are being closed and access is being taken away, you need to really consider which one someone in the real world would accept. And this is why I'm all about Bitcoin, because like, do you think really someone in the real world, just a random person, and Jeff mentioned one called Stellar Lumens, right? Just think about the path to adoption that would have to happen for like someone in the real world, just an average person, to want to provide liquidity for something like that. You probably don't even know what that one is, if you're listening, or maybe you've fairly heard about it. But so when you start thinking about that, just think about what that will do to something like Bitcoin. What we'll do for the demand for Bitcoin in the crypto space, and we'll also do for the demand of Bitcoin in the real world. So just something to think about.
Patrick, I know you wanted to mention the Bitcoin squeeze. This would be a good time for you to squeeze that in. What do you think?
I mean, sure. Like, I see stuff happening. I see that Bitcoin is getting ready to pop. Like, I don't know. It seems like I've been telling you guys, I'd let you know when I feel like things are getting ready to hype up. And I think this summer is going to be a great summer, is what I'm prepared to say. Like, I think we're going to be in the 40s by the end of summer. I think we may even be higher, but man, like, I think we're going to be end of 40s by summer. I mean, by end of 2025, I expect to see somewhere in the 120s to 130s. That's where my head's still going. And I still maintain that. I'm really excited, and I'm still always 100% bullish on Bitcoin. And with what the Fed's doing right now, I'm still 100% bullish on silver.
Yeah, I just hope that the 120, 130 mark, when it gets there, would actually buy with 120, 130 today, might even attain to buy. That's really the question. I think Bitcoin is going to get to 100K for sure. It's just a matter of what that buying power is. But I think that Bitcoin is definitely, it's an asset that people are going to want to get into. It's less than 12 months left before the halvening. So it's definitely like, it's a hot commodity, and there's not much of it. It's the only asset class that's in the world that we know how much there's going to be, and it's a truly limited supply.
This is such an exciting time, guys. Like, between now and the symposium, we're going to have things going insane. It's going to be so many things we get to comment on and get to watch leading up to this event. I'm not even sure that we understand yet the gift that Rob has given us at Stock Pulse to put this here and to pull this off and to have this day for the community that like follows us and believes what we believe and thinks like us. I told Rob, man, like he told me, Patrick, I trust you, man. Like, bring your friends. Let's do it. And he allowed me to do this. And I don't even think he will get how many people will show up to Bitcoin and Brew. It's like, come and have a beer with me and talk Bitcoin with Ninja. Let's talk with Bix. You guys want, like, this is simple in Vegas. I think that the crypto community and the Bitcoin community will show up in full force and will surprise the entire silver community. And it will no longer be the narrative of Bitcoin hates silver or Bitcoin hates gold. It will be, whoa, we got some cool friends. Wait till you see what happens when my big brother grows up and my Bitcoiners hit $100,000 for their Bitcoin. Wait till you see what opportunities our friends are going to provide. These are the things where you're like, I can weather this storm. We have a community that thinks alike. I'm really excited for the next 3 months, 120 days.
There's going to be a lot of news coming out, and it's just focus on for now. It's going to be a lot of fun in the end of September, and we got you covered for that kind of news, so you can stay with us and keep up to date. But focus on out there so you're prepared and not scared. Get ready for prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Get yourself prepared. Get your food, get everything that you need, just in case bad things happen, and you're ready for the next winter that hits, or the next disaster or next problem that occurs, because it's almost inevitable that it will happen. But we were going to have a great event at the end of September. We hope to see you there, and we hope that you're prepared and not scared. But until then, we will see you in the next episode. So take care.